Hi there! In this video we're going to be making a truss rod cover. So this is obviously a very basic operation, but I've included a few little tips and tricks to help you make nice, neat, symmetrical truss rod covers. We're using wood in this one, rosewood actually, but if you're using plastic or brass, aluminium, it's all the same procedure. Just follow this and you should make nice, neat truss rod covers. I've also included a way of thicknessing down wood if you are going to use wood for your truss rod cover to make it the right thickness. But you will need a router for that. Otherwise, this can all be done with basic hand tools. So let's get started. So this is the base we're going to be making the truss rod cover for today. This is actually a 21-inch scale mini base. So 21-inch scale, except tuned to bass octave rather than guitar, so you can see it's got some meaty strings on it. So if you're interested in seeing more details on this base, have a look at my other videos because the whole build process is on there. And there's also how it sounds and everything as well. But today the focus is going to be on making the truss rod cover. And the first thing we're going to need to do is measure up for what size it needs to be. So first we're going to measure the length, and this is 3 centimeters, the length of the route here. But we're going to need to go a bit longer than that to allow room for the screw, which will be at the point here. So I'm going to allow an extra 8 millimeters for that. And my truss rods up here are normally 10 millimeters wide, and this one is 2. So I'm going to allow an extra 2.5 millimeters either side, so a 15 millimeter width. And once we've done that, we can transfer those measurements to a piece of this. This is clear acetate. We're going to use this in place of tracing paper because it's a bit better than tracing paper because you can actually draw around on the edges. You can run a pen against it and it's even more clear as well. So I always use this instead of tracing paper. And the reason we use this and use a little template like this is just to make it nice and symmetrical. So it's nice to have something to work from. So to draw on this stuff, you'll need a permanent marker. I like these ones which have got a fine tip on. You could use a Sharpie, but they typically have quite a fat tip. So I've drawn a straight line up here just to work from, and I'm going to use the other straight line at the bottom here for the bottom of the truss rod cover. So we can put 7.5 millimeters either side. And now I've drawn in the length. I'm just going to put a line across here for a 38 millimeter. So now I'm just going to draw a square here, and we can draw in our shape at the top afterwards. So now I'm just going to draw the top in just on one side only, because that's all we need to do. Now I'm going to score the middle here as lightly as we can so we don't end up with 2 pieces, just to make the acetate bend evenly. So I've just cut out that little section we were working on, and now I folded this over as well down the line we just scored. So now I'll just need to cut it out with the scissors and we'll end up with a nice symmetrical arch shape. So now I've just placed my template over the top of the truss rod route, so you can see the area it's going to cover, and you can see it's going to cover that little bit extra either side like we wanted, and then we've got the room at the top for the screw to go through. So now I can transfer this template onto a piece of wood and cut it out. So I've got a nice offcut of rosewood here to match the fretboard, and this grain here, I like the look of this here because it's got this arch kind of grain which matches the shape. It's going to complement the shape of the truss rod cover. So I'm going to end up using this section here. I'm going to trim this down now and probably get enough for 2 out of the same section just in case I have a mistake with one, or just for future truss rod cover. So I'll probably go cut round to here, then I'll have 1, 2 up there. But after that it's going to need thinning down because this piece of wood is fairly thin already, but it's not thin enough for a truss rod cover. We'll get it down to about between 2 and 3 millimeters, and this is probably about 4 or 5 at the moment. So we're going to have to thin it down after we've cut a small section out. So I've cut off the section we're going to use and put it in this jig here. This is just very simple, it's just 3 pieces of wood and the router is on a wide base above it, so this will thickness it from above. And the rosewood is attached to the base of it with double-sided tape. So this is not actually too thick already, it needs a little bit taking off, So a couple of passes and we should be done. So there we go, it's about 2.6 millimeters now. So that's what we wanted, between 2 and 3. So that's perfect. After a bit of sanding, I'll probably more like 2.5, which is perfect. So now we can draw around our template which we've created onto the wood we've just thicknessed to make our truss rod cover. You can see this line down here, which is the edge which will go against the nut. I've already sanded this and planed it nice and smooth and straight, because you want that line to be nice against the nut and tight. So that's nice and square as well, because if this was an angle, it would be pointing, you'd end up with a truss rod cover pointing like this, which is again not what you want. So it's important that this is square and straight. So I can draw around this now and get it cut out. So you can see it's quite rough at the moment. That's because I cut away from the line rather than on it. I prefer to sand up to the line after and file, rather than just trying to cut directly on it, just so we end up with the exact shape we want, rather than it being slightly smaller or anything like that. You see, I was using a scroll saw then, electric one. If you don't have one of those, it doesn't matter. You can easily use a coping saw or a jeweler's saw to do exactly the same thing, and then sand, scrape, file to the line after. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm also going to be using an electric sanding station for this as well, but again, you could use just a file, scraper, anything you like. It'll be finished off with hand sanding and scraping anyway. So we're getting close there. I'll just finish off with a file now, just to make sure it's 100% accurate to the template. And then I'm actually going to put a beveled edge on it as well, because it's a bit square, it looks a bit just like a piece of wood. Whereas if you give it a nice bevel at the edge, it starts to look like something else. And obviously got to drill for the hole as well. And here it is after being sanded. I'm going to still give it a coat of oil as well, just to seal it in as well. And then, yeah, ready to go on the base. So it's yet to be oiled yet, but I thought I'd just do the attaching of it before and drill for it. So it's important when you're putting it on to make sure it's in the dead centre of the route. So to do that, I measure either side and make sure I've got the same measurement on either side, which this is, and I also make sure I look down the neck and make sure it's not pointing off either anyway like that or like that, which would mean there's got an angle going on here, which you don't want. But that's not happening on this one, so okay to drill for it now. And I'm just going to use a tuner screw to attach this. So this is now the next day, and the truss rod cover's had a couple of coats of oil, and you can see it's got a much darker, nicer colour, and ties in nicely with the fretboard now. So that's it, all finished. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions on the process, feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you. And if you like content like this, please subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.